radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Yeah, man. It's Monday, January 26th, 2026. That's hard to say. January 26th, 2026. I can't do it again. That's it. I'm glad tomorrow's the 27th. That's tough. That's tough. You say 26 and it seems like you've just said 2026, but you just said it, but you didn't. All right. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? It is Monday. That means we've got a brand new week coming up on Fade to Black. Tonight, the one and only Richard Beckwith is with us. We're going to be talking about the secrecy behind UFO programs and all of that other fun stuff. It's going to be an amazing conversation. Tomorrow night, Alec Seskowitz is with us. Lost Worlds and his research, his books, and everything else. Tomorrow night, it's going to be amazing. Wednesday, Dustin Perry is here. Can you believe it? Yeah, TV show host, all that stuff. And we're going to be talking about real world hauntings. Yeah. And then Thursday night, what a big week. L.A. Marzulli joins us. Yeah. And alternative history, as only L.A. Marzulli can do it. On Thursday night, you're going to probably hear me say, and when L.A. comes on the show, many years ago, 2 decades ago, when I had stumbled upon L.A. Marzulli, and I'm listening to his stuff and watching his stuff, I was like, this is my guy. This is my dude right here. And now we're friends and everything. I didn't, you can never predict the future. And his work has helped guide me, guide all of us. And it's always a treat when he's on the show for me personally, because we go back such a long ways, and I've just looked up to him forever. And so L.A. Marzulli will close out the week with us on Thursday night. My next event coming up, it's coming up in just 3 weeks. Wow, the Conscious Life Expo. February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. It is the biggest conference of its kind in the world, 20,000 attendees, ginormous, and it's an honor and a privilege for me to just say these words. I have been the host of the Conscious Life Expo now for over 10 years, and it is, all the conferences are great. They are. The Conscious Life Expo is special because it's just ginormous, and how they put it together. It is an event, and you can just go to consciouslifeexpo.com and check out the speakers and get your conference laid out. There's a lot to see and a lot to do, and I'll see you there. I have a full schedule in 2026, everybody. You see it every night on the show. Got a very busy year, but I'll see you out there somewhere. And there you go. All right, let's get to it. I was going to say something, but I forgot. Doesn't matter. Tonight, favorite subjects, amazing guest. Richard Beckwith is here. We're going to be talking about UFOs, UAPs, secret USAP, SAP programs, whistleblowers, protections, all of that and much more. I'm going to do my best to break it all down. All right. There is so much to cover here. I do my best to stay in front of all of these things. And tonight, this will help all of us take a look into really the deep, dark side of all of this, and who knows what. right? And why, and who comes forward, and where those legacy programs are. We'll be doing all of that and much more. Why? Because he's an Esquire. That's right. He's an attorney. He's an author. He's an investigative UAP researcher whose work spans law, science, and the unexplained. He has spoken on and been a guest on all of the shows and television and everything else. He's got his new book out right now. It's called Need to Know: The History, Law, and Practice of American Secrecy. That's as far as we need to go. It's going to be a great show. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Richard Beckwith. And he's right there. Richard, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jimmy. Nice to see you.
You know, I'm going to say that before we get started, I'm going to say this. The world of UFOs that we find ourselves in now is not the world and community that we had even 10 years ago.
No.
You know, prior to 2017 and all of the work of the giants, you know, before us that were pushing all of this forward. There's so much history, and so many have attempted to pierce that veil. So many, right? Donald Kehoe, you know, you just think about Donald Kehoe, and I love, man, I would have loved to have dinner with Donald Kehoe. And you know, he
was saying all the things that they're saying right now, exactly the same thing.
Isn't that crazy? You watch one of the presentations that he did for Congress, or the press stuff that he did in the late 50s, early 60s. Listen to what he is saying. It is exact word for word.
Right.
It's word for word. It's not even similar. It's exact. And that was 60, almost 70 years ago. And that's just crazy. So what my point being, that those that are new to the subject because of the New York Times article or the Tic Tac or what have you, and I welcome all of them, but they think this is a new thing.
Yeah.
Right. And they actually, this is my first question to you. They actually thought, all those new kids on the block, that, oh, this disclosure thing, it's going to happen tomorrow. This is easy. Right. And here we are now. It's 2026. It's almost 10 years after the New York Times article.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of party, is it?
No, those who do not know history are condemned to repeat it, doomed to repeat it. And so, you know, Arrow, for example, is just a, you know, sort of a blue book redone. It's the same thing over and over again. But folks don't realize how long this has been going on. And that's because, of course, the UFO subject dominates social media. And of course, a lot of young folks are interested in the subject, and they should be. But they also need to be aware that there is a long history there, a long history that goes back at least to 1947. And it's a history that I've been fascinated with since I was a kid, since my dad told me about the Roswell crash. And that's probably the same with you, Jimmy, and the same with all of us that have been involved in this for many, many years. Mm-hmm. For me, I've been doing this now almost 50 years, Jimmy. I'd say about 50 years. And you know, for those that have been involved in it for a long time, we realize how rich the history of this topic is and how deep it goes. And I think a lot of the reason that we haven't paid attention to it over the years is because it's sort of a psychological avoidance technique to brush it off. I mean, that's why it's so easy to dismiss, because the thought of others being here, someone other than, or some intelligence other than humans, is just really difficult for people to swallow.
I think about, those are such important words that you just said. And the history is long and it's very deep, and the spider web is incredible. And I've been doing it the same as you, over 50 years. I started in 1972. I was like 8 years old. I'm a little older or a little younger than you, not by much. But my point is this. There are new faces, big names in disclosure today that don't know dick about the history. And I listen to them make mistakes all the time and say the wrong. It's just like, it's impossible to just get your feet into this and understand all of the history. It's taken me 50 years to know what I know. So how do you, just wake up one day and have a complete knowledge base of, going back to 1947 and before that, right? It's difficult. It truly is.
Yeah, you really have to read up on the subject, spend a lot of time reading about it and the various topics that come up as you study it. And as you have said, we've been doing this both for a really long time, over 50 years, and you get exposed to all kinds of different information. And admittedly, some of that information isn't necessarily true or correct. But over the years, you begin to see somewhat of a signal through the noise. And for me, the signal through the noise is that there is a non-human intelligence here. But whether or not it is one intelligence or a number of different species, what I tend to believe, it's a number of different species on many different levels of technology, and maybe even from different parts of the universe. I know there's been a lot of discussion from Jacques Vallée lately about his new theories involving biological robots, I guess robots, cyborgs that are created by aliens to interact with us. But I think, that we may be talking about that, and as well as people that aren't too far ahead of us technologically may be coming here, but also civilizations that may be thousands or millions of years ahead of us. And I think all of that is happening. I don't think we're the subject of interest by just one particular civilization, and it may be for all kinds of different reasons. What I tend to believe the longer I stay in this is that I'm not convinced that many of them are all that benevolent.
It's such a great point. And here's, okay, I'm going to counter that with this. We really don't know anything, right?
Right.
I mean, everything is on the table. No matter how far you let your imagination go when you think about this subject, you're still not even close.
Right. And the vast amount of information we have is anecdotal. And yes, so, you sort of have to take anecdotal information with a grain of salt. But there are sort of signals through the noise, these recurring themes that sort of come up that, that's cause me some concern sometimes, but again, even after doing this for all this time, I still I'm no closer to understanding it than I was when I first started reading all the books in the library about UFOs.
Yeah. People look to us like we have the answers, right? Jimmy, you've been doing this forever, man. Richard, you've been doing this forever. Surely you know something by now. Well, I kind of do, but I've also changed. I've changed so much on my views of things. I remember, let's go back to the mid to early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of chat groups, net groups like Paranet and Time Travel Institute, I think was another one. And
I spent a lot of time on Paranet.
Yeah, Paranet. Oof, man, that was, back then when I found Paranet, 1995, right? 95, like right in there. When I found Paranet, I was like, oh, so this is what the internet is all about. Oh, okay. Okay. So you can do this. Well, I got, what was that other sightings. Do you remember that
Oh yeah,
website?
yeah.
And so all of these, chat groups. Anyway, I was arguing with everybody out there about something that I would never argue about today, but I thought I had it figured out. And that was, there must be a log jam of a highway with UFOs on it, bumper to bumper, trying to get to Earth, because we have all of these pictures. Why don't we have a picture of this highway? Why don't we have pictures of craft? What these metallic things must be easy to see. Where are they? And I would argue this point with everybody, because I was sure that I was right.
Yeah.
And where I'm at now, I'm so far, I would never even repeat what I used to say.
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
That reminds me of the argument that the fella used in Close Encounters of the Third Kind when they were having the press conference, and he said, there are so many millions of photographs taken by Americans every year. Now, out of all those millions of photographs, why don't we have one really good, decent picture of one of these things, and then the guy comes in and says, well, I've never been able to, see an accident at the time that it happens and get a picture of it and put it on the 6 o'clock news. But things have changed now, and people are getting images of these things all the time. The problem we have to deal with now is artificial intelligence and the generation of images that portray things that aren't really there. But there are ways to tell if you spend a little time doing it, if you're just flipping through it on the internet. But there are ways to tell, as you know, if things are authentic.
Every time that every incredible sighting, and I've had hundreds, and I probably have 5 that were really stupidly incredible. No,
I envy you.
Well, but no video. No video. The best, not my best, but my favorite sighting is, and I'm going to pull up this video. Hold on for a second.
Sure.
You're going to laugh. Okay. I'm going to set this up correctly though. All right. So we have this sighting, and this is exactly what you're talking about. We have this sighting up in Washington, and I see it, and it was probably 400. It's called the beer can. And it's 400 feet tall, comes out from behind this mountain, and it's right there in front of it. It's giant, it's crazy. And I see it in these binoculars, and I'm looking at it, and I freak out. And I'm yelling, video, 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 video. And so this is the video that was shot. You ready?
I'm ready, yeah.
Just check this out.
Tell me somebody took a picture.
See?
I swear to God, I will shoot everybody here.
It's disappeared now.
Oh, no, see? There it is. I got it. I got it.
Give us a position, man.
No, that's a bird. No, the UFO wasn't a bird.
No, that was shimmering. That was glinting.
It was a ball. It was huge. Okay, who shot it?
Okay, so now if you look in this video, right there, that's the mountain that it popped out from behind at the very, very top. And it was going, as you look at the picture, from left to right, clear blue sky, and it was huge. And then it phased away. Now you can hear Steve Murillo say it was shimmering, it was blinking, but it's gone now. It just disappeared in the sky. And that's the video. So a video was shot, but by the time I jumped up and yelled video, 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 and Lucinda, who shot this video, she takes out her phone, shoots it had phased out. And so that's a perfect example of, here we had 30 witnesses, everybody's seeing the video.
Yeah.
No, everybody's seeing the craft, but we didn't get a video because they happen that fast in most cases.
Yeah. And I think there's been some explanation too as to why they're somewhat difficult to get images of, based upon the manner in which they're being powered and their method of propulsion. And so they may be visible perhaps to the naked eye, or not visible to the naked eye, or visible to a camera, or not visible to them, all depending perhaps on whether or not their propulsion systems are activated. Like I think, and I for one sort of believe Bob Lazar's story. I don't know where you're at on that, but I think he has a pretty good explanation for why a lot of photographs and images of UFOs are blurry, because they're taking pictures of something that is being seen through a gravitational field, and it's distorting the light around it. That makes a lot of sense to me, and it makes a lot of sense. Like if you look at the Tic Tac videos, or and you can see at least on some of the FLIR images that there's some kind of a field surrounding these objects. I can tell you that. Right after the videos were released, Lou Elizondo came and briefed the board, the MUFON board, about this back in 2000. Was in the spring of 2018, and I think the Tic Tac videos, those videos were released in around November of 2017, if I recall. And Lou came and briefed us about that. One of the things he told us was that one of the things that they believe they figured out is that the shape of these craft also indicates the location of where these gravity generators might be, how many of them they might have, and where they're located. So a triangular shaped craft would have ostensibly 3 gravity generators, somewhat located near the apex of each corner. A spherical UAP would have a central gravity generator, as would the saucer shapes and so forth. And then the Tic Tacs, they believe, had 2 gravity generators. And the really, really long ones have a series of these anti-gravity generators, whatever the mechanism is, or however they operate, whether or not they operate through the use of element 115 as it's been described by Bob Lazar or not. And Lou never brought that up. We didn't really talk about Bob Lazar, but that was kind of the explanation that we were given, was that the shape of the craft has everything to do with the location of where the gravity generators are. And these each one of these craft are designed for a different purpose. What those purposes are, we don't know, but as you also know, and as your audience knows, they are perfectly comfortable operating in multi-mediums. They can operate just as easily in water as they can in air and in space. But these objects are, based upon their shape, are designed for different functions. But what they could possibly be, I don't know. Like, underwater craft, or why they would be configured in a certain way, I don't know. But something interesting, and that is, you may have heard of the friendship cases, the Amicitia cases from out of Italy. Yep. And I'm assuming then that you have seen. There are 1 or 2 books out there. Well, 2 books by a guy named Stefano Breccia, and there's also a movie out there called The Friendship Cases. And one of the things that came up in there, in these discussions, was that the craft that are used by at least the ETs that were spoken of in this series of stories, that they were manufactured and then essentially disassembled when they didn't need them anymore. They were manufactured as they needed them. So it's not like they have a hangar around somewhere with 500 UFOs sitting in it. These things can simply be manufactured almost immediately by some unknown mechanism for a specific purpose, and so they can be designed and used for a specific purpose. And when that purpose is no longer served, then the basic components are it's disassembled into its basic components, and they're used for other craft or other purposes, which may explain a lot as to why there are so many different shapes, because it may be that each craft itself is unique. Not only that, Jimmy, but you've probably also heard and become aware of the possibility that some of these craft are themselves conscious.
Well, for sure. And the other component to this, and I'm speaking to a barrister, right? But so I'll act like I'm presenting my evidence, and you can object at any time. You can object. Is that what we know now today unless you are a real student of cosmology and the universe, and you really look at this, we are just now coming to terms with the size of the universe and how many stars and galaxies and planets are actually out there. Like, just our Milky Way, which is a little tiny pinprick of nothing in the universe, we've probably got literally 1 trillion planets just here in our Milky Way. So what would that suggest? That suggests to me that I think in most cases, UFOs, a species that visits Earth, only does it once. There's too much more to explore, right? There's way too much out there. So they probably do it once. And that explains the variety of the sightings. Why would somebody on one planet, right, from a star cluster on one side of the Milky Way, buy their spaceship from the same used car lot as somebody from the other side of the galaxy?
And, yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're saying, and I'm of the opinion that any civilization that is able to reach out to us from wherever they are, whether it be on the other side of the galaxy and from another galaxy or from another reality, that they would certainly be interested in us specifically and want to know more about us, because I think we're what we would be talking about is a civilization. If they can get here, they can get to all kinds of places. So we're just one of the many places that they can focus their interest on, just like we as humans do. You know, some folks really like studying octopuses. Other people like to build cars. Some people like to study elephants. Some people like to study insects. But I think that we have drawn the interest of more than one civilization, and I think that they tend to stay here. And I think that they,
it's a possibility. Some do. And you know what we do have that they're interested in and they love? Van Halen. That's what we got. We got Van Halen, man. We were talking about Rush earlier, right? You know, and so there is a lot of magic here. I totally understand the point of view of people that want to say, what do we have to offer? Why would they even care? Well, there's a lot of beautiful things about this planet. And I do joke, we're the trailer park of the universe. Well, because we act that way. You know, we really do dumb shit on this planet, like war, and not taking care of everybody on this planet should have a really good life. And we don't do those things. And you know what? I think that's fascinating to ET. It's like, what's going on here, man? Can't you guys all get along? So I think there is that part too. Let's jump into this a little bit. We've got a lot to cover tonight.
Sure.
And before we do, all right, I want to circle back. I remember now what I was going to say earlier. Project Serpo.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I've got a couple of books on it. And one of them is the complete website, which I've read with my own eyeballs, the actual website, and would wait for the next post to come up. Right. Oh man, those are crazy days, man. Those are crazy days. But as fascinating and well written as Project Serpo was, it's probably a CIA website. It was misinformation and disinformation. That's my take. There are people out there that think it's a real thing, and it could be. I don't know. But you read through Serpo, and that is a really good example of what do you put your trust in? And today we're being tested with that all the time now. What do you put your trust in? And if you haven't read Serpo, I'm speaking to the audience, go check it out, read through it, and read all of it. The point being, when you get to the end of it, you're going to sit back and go, Okay. Well, that's what you have to do with everything today. You can't, you just can't put your trust into anything. And the first thing that I want to put on the table here is Immaculate Constellation. When this broke early last year, when this broke, it was a big deal. It went viral. Don't hear about it much anymore. What is Immaculate Constellation?
Well, Immaculate Constellation was essentially sort of where all the cover under which all the roaches ran after OSAP and ATIP were sort of blown open. And what Immaculate Constellation was, and this is according to Michael Schellenberger, he was one of the individuals that testified at one of the hearings they had late last year. This was essentially a coordinated effort by a number of different intelligence agencies, service agencies, and so forth to collect intelligence on UAPs, UFOs. And so they were using platforms, and this is different members of the intelligence community using different platforms. Some of these platforms are, cameras and sensors and things like that the public is not aware of. And the whole purpose of Immaculate Conception was to collect all this data about UAP. Now, interestingly, about Immaculate Constellation was that some of the data that they collected, if you read the report that's available online about Immaculate Constellation, they talk about ARVs and RVs. So alien reproduction vehicles and reproduction vehicles. And in the context of that, there are several instances where they believe some of the UFOs that they're dealing with in some of those instances are in fact reproduction vehicles. And so you can just tell in the report, and I find that more disturbing than aliens, because
for sure,
because well, that's fine if they're unknowns, but if they believe they're reproduction vehicles, then they must have some idea about who is reproducing them, which one of the governmental entities on the earth is capable of reproducing vehicles that are capable of these sorts of maneuvers that one might otherwise attribute the 5 observables to. And so if there is another governmental entity doing this, then we should be very scared about it. I'm not convinced that it's Russia. I think it could possibly be China, but we know that Russia and China, from what we've learned so far, have access to this. So Immaculate Constellation was merely the effort to collect data from these various platforms to get as much information as we could. It is not the same thing, however, as the legacy program. That's different. So a lot of people have sort of been mixing up Immaculate Constellation with the legacy program, which is
Immaculate
different.
Constellation was a bucket.
Yeah,
it was a bucket.
It was. And now, interestingly, speaking of buckets and where a lot of this information is going, there's a new record group out there. The National Archives has formed a new record group called Record Group 615, and you can actually go to the National Archives now and look at Record Group 615. And this is the space that the National Archives has created for where they're going to dump all this UAP data. There's some there, but there's going to be more apparently. And this is one of the reasons they've created this record group to start dumping all this data. But that was the purpose of Immaculate Constellation, not, was to collect as much data from all these different platforms. And of course, there are a number of different platforms that are secret and, can't be divulged for national security reasons and so forth. But that was the purpose of an Immaculate Constellation, was to continue to gather data that might help us understand what exactly, or at least help the military understand what these objects could be, to gather more data about them so we can maybe learn more about how they operate, what other technologies we might be able to glean from them. And of course, it is different than the legacy program that was so richly described in the most recent movie about disclosure. And of course, James Fox's movie, The Program, too, did a great job of sort of picking apart what the legacy program is all about, which is really all about back engineering the technology, retrieving it, back engineering the technology, and taking advantage of it.
The best part of Fox's The Program was the end credits. Did you watch the end credits?
Well, I did, but I'm trying to figure out why you think.
Because it's me.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
we shot that here in this studio. We shot that here in this studio.
Yeah.
That was a bad.
I have to say I love James Fox, and I just think he's done a great job. He has kept my interest up over the years, and I haven't had a lot of interaction with him, but I one of the things that you may or may not be aware of is that I provided legal counsel to Stephen Greer's Orion Project. And it was during the course of representing the Orion Project that the Atacama humanoid came up. And I had the privilege of having some interaction with James about the nature of the Atacama humanoid and so forth, and sort of an email thing, which was, I sort of consider myself somewhat of the Zelig of modern ufology. So, because I've been around for a lot of things that, I just kind of put them in a little satchel and go, okay, all right. but he's done a great job with those films of his, all of them, Out of the Blue. I know what I saw.
He does not play around. He walks the walk.
Yeah.
I just real briefly. I've done a lot of things with him over the years, and we were out shooting and with his team,
mm-hmm.
camera, light, sound, all that stuff, and his sister Kelly, who is an absolute amazing human being. I mean, she's the Mother Teresa of humanity. She's an amazing soul. She's great. And so here she is, this beautiful butterfly, right? So kind. She's really smart. And we are outside of the secret entrance to a place that I took James to. And behind the barbed wire and the warning signs that say, do not video, do not stop your vehicle, do not do this, do not do that, no photography, none of the, with penalty of death, right? Use of authorization, is authorized. And so these big billboard signs are up on this fence line. Right behind the gates is the guardhouse. And it's a big checkpoint, and they're all in there, the guards, and they're all watching, man. And I'm sitting there with Kelly outside of we're sitting on this curb watching James. I go, do you have bail money? Right? She goes, nope. I said, man, because he's about to get arrested. And so he's got like a black Cadillac Escalade, got a cameraman in the back seat with a giant camera, got a sound guy in the front seat with a boom, right? And James and they're circling, filming this base. And the guards are just watching, man. They're letting him. I'm like, James doesn't care. He will get the shot. He will get the interview. He will get the sorts of, he walks the walk. I mean, legitimately. And we were laughing at him, but either you have the gene in your DNA to be like that, true gonzo filmmaking, right? And documentary filmmaking, or you don't.
Yeah.
But you can do a documentary and piece together stuff that you found on the internet, or you can go out there and shoot it yourself and do it yourself. And that's what James has done time after time after time. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, you can't help but admire the guy, and you can't begin to praise him for how far he has helped the entire disclosure movement go forward. But we've had a couple of filmmakers anyway. I think Ron James has to be mentioned in there as well. He's done a
Ron's
hell of a
great.
job too.
Yeah,
His
Ron's
last two
great.
jobs, his last two films, the Accidental Truth and Accidental Truth Next, I think are cutting edge, and all of, and certainly contributed to the disclosure movement in Washington. I know Tim Burchett and others had seen it, but James Fox, and this latest movie, the new disclosure film, that was just amazing. I'm so happy to see things moving forward in the way that they are, but I'm still not convinced they're going to tell us anything. I think this is just to pacify us. My true feeling about it is that they're never going to tell us, and they're just going to keep strings along.
Why is that?
Well, they're not going to tell us until they can, and when they'll be able to is when they've mastered the technology, because that's what all the secrecy is about. It's about mastering the technology that comes along with it, because that is the key to planetary domination. And what else would it be about? It's not about countries anymore, I think. Well, except of course China. But basically it's about corporations and their ownership of the technology. Now, I've heard some folks say they're sitting on this technology so they can make trillions off it in the future by licensing it. But if I owned that technology and I had, an unlimited amount of money at my disposal, or if anyone was in that position, could you necessarily trust them to be loyal to the country in which they were born? Maybe these sorts of individuals who have access to this are looking at it just like any other Machiavellian human might look at it and say to themselves,
corrupts, man. Power corrupts.
That's right. And so there may be, as Richard Dolan has spoken about, an entire breakaway civilization that is ready to just, cut our throats and leave. But I think ultimately it's about corporations now. It's about power, and whoever masters that technology really will be in a position to be able to control everything on this planet. If you can deliver a nuclear weapon or even a directed particle beam weapon that you put on a UAP type platform that can go from 0 to 30,000 miles an hour in a split second, because it's dealing with a different kind of propulsion. You can be anywhere on the planet instantaneously. Do you really want to license that technology? Maybe you might want to just use it yourself. You see what I'm getting at?
I do.
And but I don't think that they've perfected these things yet. I don't, otherwise we would really truly know about it. They'd be deploying them, and well, maybe they are, and they're controlling governments without us knowing about it. But I think that the population would be aware of it if there was some power that had gained this technology, because they could just stop it out and say, okay, you're going to serve us now, sort of like the Borg. I mean, not quite that weird. They just says, okay, we're going to run the planet now, and what are you going to do? What are you going to say to them if they can just instantaneously deliver a weapon of mass destruction anywhere on the planet, just with one vehicle? Deliver one of them anywhere they want. I mean, is planetary control really that far away? So if they master that technology, Jimmy, that's really what it's about. It's about mastering the propulsion and energy systems. And they already have a good idea about how they work. But once they master that ability, then look out. That's why I think disclosure is probably important. It's a race to get these technologies out to benefit humanity versus getting these technologies, keeping these technologies in the hands of people who are going to use them to usurp the entire human race.
Yeah, I often wonder, those are all great points, and I'm just going to expand on one of those briefly, and then we'll move on, which is this. If we have a crash retrieval of technology that is from a million years ahead of us, and we don't have the blueprints or the schematics or somebody to walk us through, right, how this is done, how it's powered, their version of electricity or a power source could be vastly different than ours, and how their version of circuits are done. How is it that we would understand? And we just so many people just take that for granted. Oh, you just backwards engineer it. No, you don't. and so electricity, Edison, right? 1880. Let's go to 1880. Tesla's around, Westinghouse is doing their thing, Edison's doing their thing, light bulbs, electric watt, right? You go back to 1880 with this and don't tell them anything. What, you think that they're going to be able to build cell phones in a week and turn it on? Are they going to be able to just power it up? So that's a classic example. Take a jet aircraft back to 1880 and just go, okay, they don't know what gasoline is, jet fuel. They don't know but stop with that. That was steam engines and coal back then. And that's their frame of mind. And when they're looking at this, where do you put the coal? How do you boil the water to get steam, to get this thing to fly? It's the same thing, now.
Exactly.
Why? Let's talk about another, let's get to some hot button topics. Whistleblowers. And specifically, you brought up corporations. I live next door to Skunk Works. Skunk Works is 1 mile from my house, right there. You can see it from my house. All right. Why don't we have a whistleblower from, one of these corporations, a private contractor, engineering, or can we expect something like that to happen soon? And how do we trust?
Well, I think one could argue that we have had whistleblowers. One could argue that, again, that Bob Lazar was a whistleblower. You can say what you want about him, and there are questions about his educational background, but he, knew about things that were happening at Area 51. He knew where to have lunch. Michael Thigpen, the security guy, was admittedly in his house by his own. If he didn't work out there, what's Mike Thigpen doing in his house? But we have had whistleblowers. We've had David Grush. We've had other folks from within the intelligence community that have come forward, but I think that you're only seeing a trickle, and the reason for that is fear of reprisal, because the folks that are involved in particular, I think if I'm sure you've probably spoken to Hal Puthoff at some point, but if you talk to Hal Puthoff, he would say, just like he said in the movie recently, that secrets certainly can be kept. And this sort of information is so tightly controlled, and every time something gets away from them, they learn a little bit more about how to control the folks that are involved in these programs. And what we're talking about here are, special access programs, unacknowledged special access programs, and waived unacknowledged special access programs, knowledge about which is isolated to a very few number of individuals. And so the reason you're not seeing a lot of folks coming forward is because they don't get protected. There are a couple of whistleblower protection acts out there. There's the General Whistleblower Protection Act, which covers, folks in the bureaucracy to talk about, spending that's, that maybe might be taking place in an agency that's unlawful or something like that. But within the military and the intelligence community, they have a separate whistleblower protection act, and they have to go through a specific process where they have to, essentially report to the IG, and under these protections, like under the National Defense Authorization Act of 23 and 24, and the Intelligence Community and Military Whistleblower Protection Acts, they're supposed to be protected from things like retaliation, like loss of pay and things like that. But the statutes don't really protect you from a guy coming to your house at 3:00 in the morning and putting a bullet in the back of your head, or just driving by and running you off the road, or maybe speaking to you briefly in the street to say, "You sure you want to talk about this? Because I know where your kid goes to school." Ask these guys that. Yeah, I think it's a part of it is fear, Jimmy. But I also think that the folks that they tell these secrets have a need to know. And they've already kind of figured out who can keep a secret and who can't by the time they get to these things.
I think that's one of the main points. And the other part of it, I mean, for me, to get into the circle of that level of secrecy, right? To get into that circle, you're invited in. And this is, there's no, you're not submitting your resume online. That's not what's happening here. And so those that are close into this, and there are probably tens of thousands of people involved in these programs. It's not something small, at different corporations, at the military level and everything else. You're invited in. And once you get into that, and there's different descriptions of this. But anyway, once you get invited in, you're breaking away. This is what you've worked for, is to get to this point. And to break away, I don't know if they want to. It's not, I don't think it's fear. I don't think it's retribution. I don't think it's the threat of family or anything else. No, man, they want to be there. They're not going to break away. And the other part of it is, why haven't we seen something legit? Like David Grush is great, but he's second and third hand into all of this. He hasn't climbed on into a flying saucer. He doesn't, he hasn't been there. But Grush is a great example. But what about those engineers that are working down the street at Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, right? General Electric, just pick, think about TRW back in the day, how, where they were with all of this stuff. Where are those? Where, and that includes the military too, as well. And those that are protecting and the security people around these installations, where are they? That's the level of whistleblower that needs to come forward. Now, I want your comment on this. I've said this a lot, but I'll repeat myself. I'm not so sure that they have anything to fear. And I'll tell you why. If anything happens at all, prison, this, that, threat of court, whatever, threat, then it just means that you were telling the truth. And it's not going to go to court. You're not going to lose your pension because of an NDA or something that you broke. You're not. And the second point to this is the UFO community, the world would stand behind you. You would be the most famous person in the history of mankind. You would be more famous than Jesus. That if the real person comes forward, there would be a religion in 100 years based on you. That's how important this thing is. I'm not so sure that you would have anything to fear. I just don't. That's my take. I would like to encourage people to come forward and to say that I would stand behind you. The world would stand behind you. You would have an army of people that would just absolutely stand by. You would have a GoFundMe with $50 million in it to make sure that you and your family are taken care of. It would be like that. So I encourage anybody, if you're there, right? I live in Palmdale, man. There are people listening to this show right now that work there. Oh, yeah, I don't know, church. I'm not coming out. You talk a big game, man, but I ain't doing it. It ain't me. But I just don't think that they have anything to fear.
Well, Jimmy, I guess I would just refer you to the folks that have come forward so far and listen to the stories that they've told about the threats that they've received.
I've talked to them. And it's
you may want to ask James Forrestal how he feels about that.
I know.
So I think that, this information is so highly compartmentalized that you need more. If no matter how big a whistleblower you are, unless you have anything more than an anecdote, unless you come forward and actually have a vial of element 115 that can be tested in a laboratory, or a material that you've taken out of the program that can be tested in a lab, that you can trace back to the program, or back to an alleged alien spacecraft. But I think fear is just a part of it, and I think that another big part of it is compartmentalization. They can only tell you so much. Very few individuals on the planet have a handle on all the different aspects of the program. And so you might get an engineer or somebody to say, yeah, I worked on this, I saw the craft. Well, how much do you know about what part did you work on? Because it wouldn't be somebody that knew everything about the craft. It would be somebody that worked on the materials, or somebody
you
worked
don't
on
know who's working to your left and what they're working on to your right.
Right. It's
you
too
only
highly
know
compartmentalized.
Right,
It's designed, but it's designed that way. It was designed that way based upon the lessons that we learned during the Manhattan Project. And so that compartmentalization that took place during the Manhattan Project found its way into the National Security Act and into Executive Order 13526, because it sets out how special, what special access programs are. There's a Department of Defense Directive 5205.07 that directs how special access programs are to be run. And there's also a statute, Title 10, Section 119, which is dealing with the military and how special access programs are to be operated. Actually, Section 119E allows for waived special access programs. So the President and the Secretary of Defense can essentially waive the need to notify Congress, or at least limit the amount of information that can be exposed if national security requires it.
Yeah, there's no auditing going on. Nobody knows, once that check is cut, right? Once that wire transfer is done, that's it. There's nothing that nobody answers to anybody.
Right. And this is interesting because they can actually have line items in their budget that are just simply, identified by a code number or something like that. And they can take that money. And I think this is actually provided for in the Central Intelligence Agency Act, that they can actually, and this applies, I think, to any member of the intelligence community that are doing these kinds of actions, but they can take that money that's been given to them, start a business, and then and create a whole business just for the purposes of national security, to create more money from this business that they could use for their program, whatever that is. But you never get to find out what exactly the business is and what it has to and where all the money's going. This is a lot where this black budget stuff comes in. The idea that you can take government money, start a business, and then take the money that you earn from the business to add more money to your program. So this is just one of the many mechanisms that they use to be able to get more and more money for their programs. But as you know, there are trillions of missing dollars in the budget, and the Pentagon has never been able to get through an audit. And there should be an audit. But I mean, the thing about the military is what happens? You audit them, and then you say, "Hey, we don't want you to do that anymore," and then they go, "Okay."
Yeah, threaten me. Well, can you imagine? We need to take a break here in about 20 seconds.
Sure.
If the CEO of Lockheed Martin, of Skunk Works, whistleblowed and came out and said, "We've got a saucer. It's right here. I'll show it to you. We have one." They would be, for the foreseeable future, for maybe 1,000 years, the most famous human being. That's it. That's it. I know it sounds crazy. Jimmy, you don't know what you're talking. Think about what is being said to the planet.
Yeah. I want to believe
Right?
you, Jimmy. I really want to. I'm trying,
just-
brother.
I mean, if anything happened, then that CEO is telling the truth. And so the world, that's the anarchy that everybody's afraid of, is that kind of truth coming out and the lie being revealed.
Yeah.
I think that's a bigger problem.
Ben Rich came pretty close, Jimmy.
He did.
You know?
And that's a great book of his too, Skunk Works, which I have. Let's take our break. Richard, just stay right there. Let's get that in so we can get back and continue this conversation. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black tonight. Richard Beckwith is with us. We're doing it all tonight. Secret USAP programs, whistleblowers, UAPs, UFOs, and everything else. We're doing all of that tonight. Richard, stay right there. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month.
I am hosting, speaking, and presenting once again for the Conscious Life Expo, the largest conference of its type in the world. February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. Speakers, event, and schedule easy. Just visit consciouslifeexpo.com. I will be hosting and speaking at the Sedona Ascension Retreat, March 20th through the 22nd, 2026 in Sedona, Arizona. An amazing list of speakers, and it's beautiful Sedona. Come and hang out with us and just go to SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. I'm heading back to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd, 2026, in Delavan, Wisconsin, at the Lake Resort. It is beautiful. This is a great conference right in the heart of the Midwest, where I'm from. I'll see you there. Just go to Contact Modalities Expo, that's XPO.com. I will be hosting and presenting once again at Contact in the Desert. That's May 28th through June 1st, 2026, the largest UFO conference in the world. Come and hang out with us June 23rd through July 1st. Tickets and everything else that you need is at contactinthe.desert.com. Want to change your life? Want that paradigm shift? Then visit Peru with Brian Forrester and myself for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. A full 10 days of visiting the country, all of the amazing sights, and of course, the celebration of the winter solstice. It's all simple to do. Go to hiddenincatours.com. Come join us for the Monty Python Scotland Tour, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event where you get to go to the castles from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. August 1st through the 9th, 2026. Just visit HaleyARamsey.com.
Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut.
Jimmy Church Guy TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, maker of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com.
All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What's going on, everybody? Great week here on Fade to Black tonight. Richard Beckwith is with us. He's an attorney. That's right. He's a barrister. He is with a deep interest in UFOs, UAPs, research, conspiracies, all of that. And tonight we're talking about all of that secret stuff and the way that the government is just holding stuff from us. And Richard, continuing the conversation, I am of the position that we have two ways to look at this. One, and first and foremost, as earthlings, as humans, we have the right to know about nature. There should be nothing secret about nature, and the universe falls under that umbrella. If there's life out there, tell us. If you know, tell us. It's our fundamental right. If there is something that falls under a national security thing, I get that technology. Okay, all right. You don't have to tell us. Just tell us the truth about what is going on out there in the universe. We have a fundamental right to know. And then we have something like the postponement rule that comes into play here, where these types of things that I'm talking about that are being kept from us, basic things about nature, can fall under that 25-year postponement rule. What is it?
Well, that's a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act that essentially allows the government to continue to keep some UFO secrets secret for an additional 25 years. It was sort of modeled after the JFK Disclosure Act. And what it does is it essentially, it doesn't necessarily carry it out for another 25 years, but things can be kept for that long if disclosure of those particular facts could have a detrimental effect on national security that may not have been foreseen when the act is passed. And so that 25-year gap gives them some time and gives everyone time, to sort of adjust to the possibility. And there are a number of reasons for that 25-year gap. Another one is to sort of let things not only cool down, but to let the folks that were involved in the operations sort of fade away, and that sort of thing, so that there isn't really a lot of reprisal. But all it does is it delays the inevitable, which is the disclosure of the information related to UAPs. But even that, Jimmy, I don't think we may we may get a lot of records, but I don't think it will end up touching on, a lot of the things that are being withheld within the auspices of the legacy program. I think that those things, when you were speaking a minute ago about just tell us if there's life in the universe. I mean, that's not hard to swallow. I think that most people believe that. And, the Catholic Church has said, well, we have space brothers out there, maybe in an attempt to sort of temper what might be to come. But I told at least one congressperson this. The question was, it was actually from Andre Carson when we met with him, and the question was, can we tell the people? And my answer was no. Which drew a bit of ire from my fellow MUFON board members who were meeting with the congressman. But my reasoning is this. Well, first of all, don't get me wrong. The information is going to come out. And so if it's going to come out, we might as well just get it out there. But there are some aspects to this information that may be so disturbing that it's more than simply, we're being visited by people from another planet or another location in the universe or an alternate reality. That may be something that we can live with. But if it has something to do with the possibility that humans are an experiment and that comes to light, or that, as Bob Lazar said, that one of the things that he read was some of the material he read indicated that the visitors, that they are from Zeta Reticuli. I'm not saying they are, but some of the materials he read indicated that they refer to us as containers. I know you've heard this. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the possibility that, well, and I certainly believe that, and like I said, I've been doing this a really long time, and I've had the opportunity to get to be very close with folks like Claude Swanson, another guy named Stanislav Ojak, who was a colleague of Dr. Putoff's and Russell Targ's, and they were all together at SRI with Ingo Swann when they started the CIA's remote viewing program and all those psi experiments there. But I am of the opinion that we do have a soul, but some of the information that I've come into, well, that at least gives me pause, is the notion that they may be using our souls for some purpose. And I actually wrote a novel about it. I'm not trying to plug my novel. It's called The Corporate. But this came from something that John Lear talked about, which is that there is a facility on the moon, and they've actually had taken pictures of it. It's called the Shard. And the Shard is allegedly a soul collector. And that when we die and we see the light, that is actually the soul collector on the moon, and they collect our souls for some purpose. And so when you go into the light, it's like a moth being drawn to. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it is, Jimmy, but what I am saying is that the information that they're withholding may be along those lines, and it may be so disturbing.
But what is threatening or scary about that for us humans? And I'll take it a step further. We have, if you want to see experiments on humans, we're so numbed to it. Just go watch television and watch the big pharma commercials and watch the disclaimers at the end. May cause,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
it's just like whoa. What we take that, it's just like water off a duck's back, and so. But to take it even further than that, I don't think anything would shock this planet. But to take it a step further, that kind of adventure, where your soul goes and you're being beamed into a soul collector on the far side of the moon, and then heading out to Andromeda,
Well, now hang
to
on, Jimmy. You're presuming that you get back out again.
Right. But I think that's the ultimate tourist destination, and those are the answers to the questions that we just don't have right now. I don't think that's anything to be scared of. That's just
I
my
appreciate
take.
that, Jimmy. I'm glad you feel that way.
I run around with flowers hanging out of my pockets, obviously.
Well, I just, I spent some time around Stephen Greer, and I know that he is of the opinion that, the visitors are invariably benevolent and have nothing but our best interest at heart, that they want us not to use nuclear weapons, which is, of course, we don't want to.
We don't want that, but right. I think we all know that that's a bunch of bullshit.
But I
there's
think
good and bad in the universe, just like there's good and bad on this planet.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And the thing is that little bits of information continue to come out that indicate that maybe the gatekeepers may be privy to some information that is in fact really truly disturbing. And so you and I can handle it, Jimmy. Your audience can handle it. The MUFON folks can handle it. The people that have looked into this and have sort of resolved themselves to the fact that we are being visited by someone, by probably many different civilizations, that we can probably handle that on some level, that basic sort of information. But when it starts to get really complex, when we start learning that maybe we weren't put here by a bearded Caucasian god who watches over us all day long to make sure that we don't trip and fall, unless he wants us to, because he needs us to come home. If you have spent your life believing things like that, and then suddenly find out that all of that is in fact, as you said, bullshit, right, then that in and of itself, and this is what it came down to, and this is one of the, and this is the problem that I think about, and that is the catastrophic disclosure, and that is that each one of us has an ego that places us in a particular place, in a particular time on the planet and in the universe and relative to everyone else. So we know where we belong, we know who we are and where we came from, because we were taught that from the time we were little. This is where you came from. This is how long humans have been on the earth, yada, yada, yada. And you build up this sort of place in your head that your ego lives in. And then all of a sudden, one day, somebody comes along and tells everybody on the planet, and everybody on the planet realizes that everything that they've been taught is completely wrong. That all that stuff they've ever been taught is wrong, and it causes the reconstruction of the ego of every person on the planet. And
that's right.
This is exactly what I told Andre Carson, that you cannot predict the outcome of that.
No, you can't. You cannot. You are 100% correct. And this is where I'll flip this over into the UFO side of things. And by the way, bearded Caucasian man, that was priceless. By the way, I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that. I'm not going to give you any credit. No credit.
That's fine, Jimmy. You don't have to.
But
I'm not married to it.
But here's the thing. For some reason, built into our DNA, every culture on this planet, built into our DNA, is a belief in a God.
Mm-hmm.
Every culture that it goes back so far that there's no way that any of these cultures could have had contact with each other, that they were discussing these things. There's all kinds of barriers that would stop that besides oceans. How about language, right? And so forth. But always there, every culture somehow developed a religion for, right? It's so what's the common thing here? Well, okay, they were making friends with somebody not from here. How do you explain that to the village, right? If you're the village elder, how are you going to explain this to the village in a context that they would understand? Well, call him a god. And that's it. And that's the crazy part. So that, back to your point, this thing that is in our DNA has been there for so long that to alter that, that's the very fabric of everything that we stand and walk on.
Mhm.
And that's tough. You're absolutely right, man. I mean, I can't imagine how many sleepless nights you would have with families around the world to have their paradigm shifted that far. That's
right, because you're
man.
what I mean, not necessarily that you would be learning that there's no God, but maybe God doesn't take the form that you believed
right.
that this particular God took. It may be that I personally sort of view God as the central consciousness from which we all arise. That it is we are all part of that central source of consciousness. I think even there have been some studies done that indicate that this is a real possibility. I think Bob Bigelow has been out there talking about it, because one of the things he started looking into, along with the UAP phenomenon, was life after death, and well, the continuation of consciousness. But back to the issue, which is disclosure and what form that will take, how people will take it. And I'm just simply of the opinion that, well, first of all, you and I are probably both know that it's not our government controlling the secrecy, it's them. If they really wanted the human race to know that they were here, or they thought we were ready for it, they would they maybe go on a door-to-door campaign. Hi, my name's Zeeb Zorp, and this is, and a little three-fingered guy, and he handles you a pamphlet and say, we're downtown at the at the Kiwanis Club. If you want to stop by, we'd like to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if the visitors really wanted us to know,
Kiwanis Club. Did you just say, come on, you are old. You are old, Kiwanis. Are they still around?
We still have a Kiwanis baseball field, but I don't think the Kiwanis Club is still around here.
I was out riding with some friends, Harleys, right? We're in a group and goofing around. And I said, so what's your patch, right? Dude, we're the Elks Club riders. And I go, Elks Club? Now, I'm not making fun. These guys are great guys and stuff. But my mind was like, there's an Elks Club in town? You guys are still around? But yeah, Kiwanis. Yeah, Elks Club riders, man. We have bike night every Friday, man. Come on by.
I belong to the Eagles Club for a little while. I have a bike, but I'm not a true biker. I just have a Honda Fury, Jimmy. I'm not a real biker.
Nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that. I love that. I
love my Fury.
There is we'll get back to the UFO secrecy in a second. I want to talk about John Greenwald.
Yeah.
There are hand signals that bikers do. Okay. And only to other bikers. And you see it. Yeah. 2 wheels down. And so you see it, but you don't necessarily know what it's about.
Right.
But I wave or give hand signals to everybody. I don't care if they're on a moped, an electric bike. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A Honda Fury, right? A Virago.
Yeah. And I have to say that, before we get back to the UFO thing, I love that. When I first got on my motorcycle, I knew everybody did that, because my buddy said, now remember, when you're riding your motorcycle, you got to give them keep your 2 wheels down, So now I look for guys on 2 wheels, and it doesn't matter if they're riding a scooter or whatever, but I just love to reach my gloved hand down from my really cool looking motorcycle and give them the 2 wheels down thing.
Yeah. I love that part of when I go out on a ride, I'm serious. It is the meditation. It's all that. It's the wind therapy. It's going out, just exploring. Of course, hearing the bike is blah, 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 blah. All of that. But no, man, I want to see how many waves I get. I want to go out and see the other riders. I'm being it is such a cool community. To be a part of. It's just amazing. Now, okay, John Greenwald. Here's the thing. And I've been friends. I've known John for a long time, man. And that guy, man, he's just absolutely amazing. And he has done his best to navigate the Freedom of Information Act black world. It's that's an underbelly of something that I know nothing about. But he has done his best for over 30 years. He started that website when he was like 15 years old. You know, and he's really good at it. But he even gets denied. And he's constantly filing appeals. It's not like you can go and type in, okay, man, I want everything you got on Bob Lazar. And then that stuff's just going to show up magically in your mailbox, in a couple of weeks. It doesn't work that way, does it?
No, you have to specifically identify the information that you're seeking. And if possible, identify the documents that you're looking for, documents dealing with X and X and X between dates and dates and dates compiled by a particular agency. So you have to be very specific in the Freedom of Information Act request, all depending on what agency you're looking at too. All of them require some specificity, and you can't just go in and wholesale ask for things. Interestingly, FOIA works great when you're talking about classification under Executive Order 13526 and the classification scheme that is outlined by that order. But interestingly, FOIA cannot touch Department of Energy documents, thanks to the Atomic Energy Act. Now, you'll notice that FOIA has really a number of exemptions, but exemption 1 is the exemption used by intelligence community and intelligence community members to deny Freedom of Information Act requests because the information disclosed could affect national security. But the Department of Energy is excluded from having to produce information under Exemption 3 to FOIA because Exemption 3 exempts all information that is secret by statute. And interestingly, under the Atomic Energy Act, there's something called restricted data. And restricted data is secret from what they call birth. So it's secret from birth. From the moment it is discovered, it is secret. Restricted data involves nuclear materials and the production of energy using nuclear interactions. Now, the interesting thing about that is it doesn't necessarily mean just fission and fusion. So any materials related to propulsion or to energy production that might have something to do with the interactions of atomic nuclei is immediately secret and can never be discovered under FOIA. So there's a whole, and you may recall,
but doesn't that cover just about everything, right?
FOIA?
No, that exemption.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to that, yes, that's exactly right. And I think Bob Lazar would tell you that. And some of the folks that have worked on some of this stuff would tell you that they were working under the auspices of the Department of Energy. And so that's one of the ways they keep it away from us is by virtue of the fact that some of this stuff likely involves the interaction of nuclei somehow, and maybe not related to either fission or fusion, but something akin to element 115 and the manner in which it allegedly operates in its stable form. And just to reiterate for your audience, the way that particular element works, allegedly, is that it is element 115 as because of the number of neutrons in it. And when they hit it with a neutron beam, and it bumps element 115 very quickly up to element 116, and then it very quickly sloughs off that neutron and becomes element 115 again. And it's during that interaction that a tremendous amount of energy is released. That particular thing that he describes would in fact be immediately be born secret under the Department of Energy and under the Atomic Energy Act. And so you would never be able to learn about it. Although there is some oversight, it's not the same kind of oversight that Congress has over the classification system and over special access programs, although there are special access programs under the Atomic Energy Act. But again, that has to do specifically with nuclear materials and related to the production of energy. So you can, like you said, it encompasses just about everything, doesn't it? Except for the bodies and the spacecraft, perhaps themselves, unless they're intimately involved in the production of energy. So it may be, again, this stuff's all compartmentalized. So this is all going to different locations within the government.
And the Freedom of Information Act, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but that only deals with government.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a FOIA request about Lockheed Skunk Works.
No.
And anything private, any corporation like that doesn't fall under FOIA, does it?
No, not any more than, the FOIA applies to your neighbor if you want to find out
or
what
me,
kind of
right,
engine
right.
he has in his car. Exactly. It doesn't apply to corporations, and that's a really neat tool, isn't it? Because our statutes are designed beginning with the National Security Act, and there are also some executive orders that follow, like Executive Order 12333 and Executive Order 12898. 12333 describes the intelligence community, and Executive Order 13526 and I think 12333 allow for the formation of contracts with private contractors for the intelligence community if they need certain materials, or they need certain things to be built or studied. They can enter into contracts with private contractors, and this paradigm has been used. I'm sure you read Colonel Corso's book, The Day After Roswell. This is exactly the process that they follow. They get these materials that they glean from the crash and retrieval programs, and they take them to private corporations, and they tell them exactly what Colonel Corso said to guys like Bell Labs and those folks. They basically say, okay, here's some stuff. We don't know what it does or how it works. It's yours. Figure out how it works. If it has a strictly civilian application, you can say that you invented it and we don't know anything about it. If it has a military application, we want to know about it first. And this is all hush hush. We don't want you to talk about it. And so that's how it works. And so they take that, and sometimes there are civilian applications, and they invent things like Kevlar and flat screen displays and night vision and all this sort of stuff. And I'm sure that there are other technologies out there that are waiting in the wings, that they're just slowly dripping on us. But it goes back to the back engineering thing that we were talking about, which is, if you take a calculator or a cell phone, and you just go back even 50 years, 75 years before the invention of or the discovery of integrated circuits, and folks working with vacuum tubes, they might have an idea that it is a theoretical kind of circuit that they've been thinking about, but they would never be able to replicate that technology. That's what I find interesting about humans, because we have been able to replicate some of the technology. So we've gotten some ideas that have helped us along with some of the technologies that we've been working on. And what that tells me is that we're not necessarily just animals, that we're very insidious. Human beings are very insidious, Jimmy. For the most part, we're just dumb monkeys with guns and nuclear bombs. But there are people, so human beings are really stupid, but then there are some of us that are really, really, really smart, so much so that I think we impress the visitors to a certain extent, because we have been able to take some of the technologies, and not just any monkey can do that. So I think we're really smart, and I think that that's part of what makes us really dangerous, because we're now at the stage with our technology. We've developed nuclear technology to the point where we can make bombs that are highly destructive, much more powerful than the bombs that leveled Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I think we're right on the cusp of discovering or perfecting technologies that will allow us to go out into the universe with our nuclear weapons. And I think that is of some concern to some of our visitor friends, that they're concerned that we're going to take our particular brand of diplomacy out into the universe. And why wouldn't we, Jimmy? Because that's what humans do. That's what, I mean, what happened when we made it to the New World? We slaughtered everybody and took their land. And so if we, let's say, I mean, like, look at, look at, the Avatar films. I watch those and I think, yeah.
I'm embarrassed. Yeah, I know. It's so close to the mark.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's exactly how we would do it. I find it embarrassing. If ET's here all the time, but let's say it happens, right? Mothership, and I'm talking to ET, and the world is now, in disclosure. I'm not so sure if I'm proud of this planet. I'm more embarrassed. I would like to see us fix some things first. More about how we treat each other and the respect that we give to everybody, that those boundaries get erased. Again, I have flowers hanging out of my pockets, but I would like to
Jimmy, you're on the right track, Jimmy, because I think that what you're talking about there, right there is the key. And, Doctor, I am not necessarily a religious person, or I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a spiritual person, but a lot of the folks that are involved in this particular kind of stuff are involved in the Baha'i faith. My friend Dr. Ojak was Baha'i. Dr. Greer is Baha'i. And one of the prevailing themes that I see that keeps coming up in the contact paradigm, and I think there's some discussion of this in the movie about Varginha and the experience that the doctor had with the alien, in that it was an angel. And what I think is that we're not going to be allowed into this particular club that we're talking about until we learn to love other people more than we love ourselves, and at least as much as we love our own families, perfect strangers. And also, I think we need to stop slaughtering animals and eating them. I think that this is disgusting to some of our visitors. And that's one of the reasons that we are primitive, because we still continue to slaughter and consume animals. And I like hamburgers,
right.
but
let me hold on. Let's pump the brakes on that for a second. Let's stay right here. No matter how that view is, specifically consuming meat or what have you, ET to arrive at this planet evolved the same way we did. They ate meat. I guarantee you in the beginning, they were killing everything to survive. So, but that's my question back to ET. How did you survive yourself? How did you advance your species? What is that secret? I don't care about cancer research. I don't care about saving the planet or pollution. I don't care about any of that. I want to know how ET survived themselves. What's that magic sauce? Because we're real close to messing up everything, right? We're really close.
Any day.
Yeah, we're close to being a comma, right? We're that
I
close.
agree.
A footnote to history. So that's what I want out of ET. All right. Okay, I get this animal thing, but how did you do it?
Yeah,
we have to feed this entire planet. We cannot tomorrow stop eating chickens. Tomorrow, that ain't gonna happen. This whole planet, no, it's simply not.
We're stuck in a rut, Jimmy, in a couple of ruts. One of the ruts that we're stuck in is that we really can't afford to stop making weapons to kill each other. Our economies, the world economy can't stop making
bullets. Making bullets.
Right. And really we can't afford to get off fossil fuels. We can't afford it.
I don't want to get off fossil fuels. I ride a Harley, man.
Yeah.
I've got a V8 or 2 in my driveway.
Didn't
I
Harley come up with an
love-
electric cycle?
Man, there's no way. There's no way you would catch me on one of those. Ever,
I bet they go fast.
They never say never. I'm telling you right now, that will never happen. That will never. Okay. Let's shift gears. It's a very important subject. We were talking about FOIA. Is the Wilson Davis document. And the Wilson Davis document, when it was leaked to me and Richard Dolan at the same time, right? Okay. And when that bursted out, Stephen Greer was involved with that.
Yeah.
I called Greer up immediately and said, you're on page 3 or page 1 or whatever. And I immediately had Greer on Coast to Coast that Friday. I think I opened up the email the same day that Richard did. It seemed like it was a Monday or a Tuesday, and I shifted gears and brought Greer onto Coast. But my point is, as I was reading through that, Oak Shannon, right, and Wilson coming out to California, and without naming Lockheed, it was Lockheed, right? So he's at Lockheed, and they tell him Wilson's pissed off. He's pissed off about the checks that were being cut. He wants information. He's this, he's that. He wants to know what's going on. And they tell him, dude, we'll show you the flying saucer. We have it. It's right there. You want to see it? We think it can fly. We haven't gotten it to fly yet, but it's right there. It's in the other room. We'll show it to you. You want to see it? And Wilson gets pissed off. And they said to him, look, man, go back to Washington, yell, scream, do whatever you want. We don't give a shit. You're not going to change anything that's going on here. This is way beyond your pay grade.
Right.
Now,
you never need to know.
Right. That part of the Wilson Davis document, like, said everything about what we're talking about right now, didn't it?
Yeah. He didn't have a need to know. The president didn't have a need to know. I don't think that the current president or any former president has been, had a need to know. However, I do think George H.W. Bush knew quite a bit. His director of Central Intelligence, as you know, was Dick Cheney. And George H.W. Bush himself was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency and is credited with having briefed President Carter about that. I was fortunate enough to know Dick Cheney. I got to know him when I was working in radio as a young man back in the late 70s, when he was a congressman. And I got to know him pretty good. I wish I knew then what I know now.
Of course.
Because this is a guy that I had a very sort of cordial, somewhat joking relationship. I did news and stuff like that, but I was also just a disc jockey, basically. And this guy would come over to the studio and he'd hang out in my studio for 2 or 3 hours, and we'd spin records, and I'd interview him, and we'd talk and really? Laugh. Yeah, I make fun of his tie.
What kind of music did what did he spin?
well, he was just there, but it was it was KRKK radio in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and
Dick Cheney, really?
Yeah, Dick Cheney, and this is back when it was at the time when Malcolm Wallop was around, and I'm trying to think of who else was there too. There were a couple. Oh yeah, Alan Simpson. He wrote a letter for me to go to law school, so I got to know all those guys really good, and I got to know Dick Cheney really well. One time I'm
just trying to picture Dick Cheney tapping his foot to a song.
Yeah, he was really a nice guy. Honestly, I never perceived him as being. But then again, I was just a young kid, 17, 18, 19 years old when this guy was a congressman, and we just had a great cordial relationship. I know one of the things we always talked about was severance taxes, but of course, that didn't have anything to do with UFOs, and he didn't, I'm sure, get read in until later on. But it's just interesting, it's just kind of funny to look back and think, oh my God, I used to sit in a room with this guy who was like one of the gatekeepers.
You're 17, 18, working at a radio station. Dick Cheney's there. Did you guys smoke weed?
No.
Didn't smoke weed with Dick?
No weed
Okay,
smoking with Dick Cheney. But it was back in that time though that they made me the news director, and the first thing I did was did a week-long special on UFOs, and I went down to Laramie and met Dr. Sprinkle. And that's when I got to know Leo Sprinkle. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Greer was going to Dr. Sprinkle's and attending his contactee conferences that he was putting on in Laramie at the University of Wyoming there at the counseling center. And that's where I got to know him. I got to sit in a regressive hypnosis session with Dr. Sprinkle and a guy named Pat McGuire, who owned a ranch wherein UFOs were always coming in, and
I remember Pat McGuire. Sure.
Yeah, Pat McGuire. He's the guy that built. And this is all detailed in Dave Politis's movie 411, the UFO Connect, missing 411, the UFO Connection. But anyway, I got to know Pat McGuire back then. A friend of mine and I spent a weekend at Pat McGuire's ranch. And listened to him regale us with stories of his UFO encounters while staying there building the well that he built. He bought a big tank motor and then drilled into a piece of the Ogallala Aquifer in a location on this ranch where the geologists and the hydrologists all told him there was nothing there. But the aliens told him to drill the well there, and he did, and he ended up tapping into an offshoot of the Ogallala Aquifer. I think that well is still pumping to this day. But that was back in the day. Yeah, Leo Sprinkle. And we later formed a group called the Institute for Human Cosmic Interaction, along with my friend Dr. Ojak, and we had some other folks involved. Paul.
What was it called?
The Institute for Human Cosmic Interaction. And it was just a private group it started off with about 10 or 15 people, Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, and Leo Sprinkle and I, Dr. Stanislav Ojak.
That's quite the crew.
It was.
You guys were smoking weed, though. Just to name that group.
And I through Dr. Ojak, I got to know Claude Swanson, and I ended up getting to be pretty good buddies with Claude Swanson. He actually spent some time with me at the MUFON Symposium in Las Vegas. We shared a room together for a couple of days, so I'm laying there at 2:00 in the morning talking to Claude Swanson about consciousness.
Were you there? I wanted to ask you about this, and the time that we have left. Two things I want to jump into. Were you there when Bill Moore did his famous speech?
No, I didn't get to see that. I didn't get to see that. I met you in Vegas, though, I think.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I remember that. The reason why I bring that up, and going back to the Wilson Davis document.
Yes.
I think that is the comfort zone that these corporations and others stand behind without any worry, because you can try to say and do and influence whatever you want. You're not going to make a difference.
Right.
And, to say that to a rear admiral, right? Freaking rear admiral, man. And just to go, dude, you can sit in the pilot seat, right? You can go back to Washington and say whatever you want. We don't care.
Right.
That atmosphere is what prevails today. It doesn't. Don't you think Andre Carson got a taste of that, and Burleson and Burchett?
Well, I'm sure they all have it. They're fed up with it because they keep running into that wall, and privatization is one of the pillars that they use, one of the bulwarks that they use to keep these things secret. Just hand it over to a private corporation, and they're under no obligation at all to tell you anything. Of course, there is some reporting requirement at some level to the powers that be in Congress, but that can even be limited based upon whether or not certain information is and the requirements for certain information is waived. So it's like it's described in that movie about disclosure, basically you are you're just not able to talk about it.
Why do you? Well, which is my point. Why has the leash been let out a little bit since 2017? We've had multiple hearings. The press is suddenly okay talking about this. It's never like that in the past. And suddenly, to a certain degree, the leash has been let out. The leash hasn't been let go. They haven't taken anything.
I think their hand was forced. I think Lou and Christopher Mellon forced their hand by this release, and I think that they really pissed off the powers that be. As you recall, there was some talk later on that they really tried to discredit Lou, and I know Lou's been threatened and all sorts of stuff, and so has Christopher Mellon, and also Jay Stratton was also threatened in a similar way. But I think they forced the issue, which is something that the powers that be didn't want to happen. And so now they've just simply been dealing with the aftermath. And I think the leash has been let out a little bit, but only because their hand was forced. And now they're just simply playing, doing the same playbook again by repeating again, over and over again, that we haven't found any evidence of extraterrestrial life. This is Arrow, of course, and the folks that are leading that particular effort. They're doing this because they have no choice but to do it. In my view, they're restrained by the law to keep UFOs secret because they relate to national security in so many different ways. And so one of the ways they relate to national security is that continuing to keep them secret and using them in the way that they do, it's a great cover for covert research and development efforts. They also have to keep it secret because they don't want our enemies. This is another national security concern, is they don't want our enemies to know how far along we are with the back engineering of them, just like they don't want us to know how far along they are. So there are all these reasons why we sort of have to keep it secret until we're able at some point to feel comfortable about letting them know exactly what we do know. But I think there's a lot of technology out there that we've gleaned from them, and it just can't be discussed. Even though we just had this discussion about the potential for cultural shock and all of that stuff. There is also the potential for the destruction of humanity. Like, for example, like Bob Lazar said, element 115 could be used to make a horrible weapon that might blow up half of the planet. And so there are all kinds of other national security concerns other than just the cultural shock that might come about as the result of it. There's also the possibility that if the technology gets out, that just one lone actor could blow up the whole planet. That's in my view the real danger.
There is that. Then there's the other part, element 115, whether it's real or not.
Right, we don't know that. We don't know that. But it's a good example.
It could be used for farming and heating our schools and electricity and other things, not necessarily just a weapon. Right. And the other part, culturally, especially here in the United States, where we think everything revolves around us, and it doesn't. And the UFO phenomenon and ET visiting here, they don't just visit the United States. Russia must have a craft or two or hundreds, and China, Israel, Spain, pick a country, Brazil, right? Pick a country. It's all over the planet. So
this is why I have difficulty. This is why I have difficulty with the notion that there's some kind of non-interference directive, because if there is, they've really screwed it up, and we have been. And I wrote an article about this not too long ago, but they have really screwed us here, Jimmy. They have contaminated us with their technology. Would we be so close to destroying ourselves if we didn't have integrated circuits, if we didn't have the ability to target our enemies so accurately, to produce weapons with new kinds of materials and have ideas for all kinds of new weapons that came out of the technology that they just that they so carelessly left here. I think they owe us, and I'm not kidding about that. I think, I mean, this is a really serious subject for me because we have been contaminated, and I think they owe us safety as a result of that. I think they need to stop us from killing ourselves because they've helped us get here.
Well, they have to stop Facebook and Twitter too. You know, we can, you know, I say that in a slightly cavalier way, and I get that, but it's so surprising to me how quickly we just decided to become stupid, that putting our head in the sand and ignoring the real issues with the future generations and everything else, that all of this stuff is a non-issue. These non-trivial situations that we find ourselves in today, it's insane, and we let it all happen. You know, I don't know. And this is the other thing. Okay, so staying on that, how do you think, we have 4 minutes, how do you think disclosure will happen? Do you think that the government's hand will be forced with a leak of the Immaculate Constellation, right, bucket, you know, that suddenly gets leaked? Could that be it? Is it a mothership over Los Angeles and then the government is forced into talking about it? Or will it happen another way? How do you think it's going to happen? I think it's close too, by the way. I feel like I can almost reach out and touch it.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Jimmy. I think that it is close, but it's going to be on the terms of the folks that have the information. They're going to control the narrative, and so they may tell us, but it will have an underlying purpose. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the military, and I don't trust that they're just simply going to tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They'll tell us the truth in a way that best suits their purposes. What that truth will be and what form it will take, I cannot possibly imagine. But it may be in the, you know, I think of Dr. Carol Rosin and the prediction that she made based upon what Dr. Werner von Braun told her, which is that the military-industrial complex will require a new enemy, and that enemy will take the form of an enemy from outside of our world, first in the form of asteroids, and then next in the form of aliens. And so, in my view, in order for the military-industrial complex to maintain its grip, which it has right now on our planet, it will have to perpetuate the myth that we are under a military threat from outside of our world. And
but we've been doing that for 10,000 years. Right, that's what you do, right? The enemy's on the other side of the mountain. Let's tell you about, you know, and
that's how they maintain control. And so what can we do? All we can do is act as individuals and say to ourselves, well, let's keep an open mind about how this all unfolds, and I hope that it results in a world where we are not controlled, you know, where we have, you know, a continuation of our free will, you know, the right to, you know, express ourselves in free ways. I'm not sure what the world is going to look like. I agree with you, Jimmy. Disclosure is going to happen. We're going to figure, you know, we are going to know soon as a planet that we are not alone. You and I will not be alone in that knowledge. Everybody else is going to figure this out pretty soon. And but what form that's going to take, I think that Bryce Zabel and Richard Dolan's book, The Day After Disclosure, I think is a great way to look at it. There are all kinds of different ways that disclosure can happen. I suspect that if it happens now, like if the president, for example, were to come out tomorrow and say, hey, guess what? There's aliens here, and they've been here a long time. And I mean, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to tell us, but that can't turn out good. I just don't see that. I just don't see, there are just too many questions. I think that if the information is going to come out, then the folks that give us that information are going to have to be willing to answer a lot of unanswered questions other than we're not alone. Okay, where did they come from? Who are they?
They need to rip the Band-Aid up. They need to rip the Band-Aid off. Mm-hmm. They don't want to, but they need to rip it off. The alternative to that with what you're just by the way, AD After Disclosure, written 20 years ago. How crazy is that?
I know
it's such a great book, book. But the alternative to ripping the Band-Aid off is having ET show up here and tell everybody, nah, man, we've been talking to your government for a few hundred years, man. And yeah, they've known. That would piss off the world. Now you've got a real problem on your hands. You really want a bunch of upset people? You want 8 billion pissed off people? Do it that way. I say rip the Band-Aid off. Keep your tech secrets. Okay, that's fine. You don't want it to fall in it. Okay, all right. But the rest of it, they should just rip the Band-Aid off. Richard, great show tonight and an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. I hope we get a chance to talk again. I'm sure we'll see each other. I want to hang with you, and I want to hang with you in Egypt or in South America or something. Sometime.
Man, come with us, man. I'm always there. I'm going twice to Peru this year, so I've got a couple trips. Where can everybody follow your work?
Well, I have a website, richardbeckwith.com. You can get copies of my book, Need to Know, The History, Law, and Practice of American Secrecy on Amazon.com. And just go to my website. I also host the official MUFON Podcast. You can follow us on YouTube. And that's where you can follow me, is on richardbeckwith.com. I have links to my blog. I have a Substack. And of course, I have my own YouTube channel called Secrecy Watch, where I talk about issues related to UAP and national security.
You're the best, man. Really,
you are too, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
It's good seeing you again.
You too.
Richard Beckwith, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your night, Richard. Great show. Thank you so much.
Jimmy. Bye.
Perfect night on Fade to Black. That's how we started off this week. Right there, Richard Beckwith. And Richard's right. His Facebook, his Substack, his YouTube channel, and everything else, just head over to richardbeckwith.com. All right. Now, we've got just like tonight, we've got an amazing week coming up on Fade to Black. And I do want to remind everybody, tomorrow night we have Alec Sezgowitz is with us tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about Lost Worlds, our deep ancient history about us tomorrow night. So I'll see everybody there, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night, and of course on the news. With that, all I've got is go Beckley Teppy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Teppy.